Christine, remember when you were a kid and you thought that your career was going to be this like perfect straight line trajectory?
Oh my, yes. That is not at all what happened. It ended up being way more of a squiggle than I could have ever imagined. And I am so happy that I embraced all of the squiggles along the way.
All right, welcome everybody back to Embrace the Squiggle, the podcast where we talk about those squiggly careers. I am Colleen.
And Christine.
And today we are here with episode 104 with my friend Anna Campbell. Welcome, Anna. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So Anna and I were just reminiscing. We met when I did a career change weekend retreat at Disney, because if you're going to do a career change weekend retreat, why not do it at a fun place? And so I did a few of them there. Probably, I don't know, gosh, 9 years ago, I think we were figuring out that Anna came to one. And Anna's been one of those folks who's been on my mind when we've done this, because I always thought her story would be great for folks to hear. So I don't want to give away a lot of what you do right now, Anna, because I think we're going to get into that, because you have had just a really interesting career that doesn't necessarily align at all with what your undergrad was in. Right? Or what you plan to do. Or maybe you did plan to do this and I don't know that. But I remember sitting at Disney and kind of chatting with you and you trying to figure out, right, what could you do that was different? So we're going to jump in. So let's start off with little Anna. So what did little Anna think she was going to be? Like when you were a little kid, what were you like, okay, this is me. This is what I'm going to do.
I think in my heart of hearts, I wanted to be an actor, but I was a terrible actor. So that was never going to happen. But I remember doing one of those career kind of like quiz things you do in high school to figure out like what is, I think like an aptitude test or something. Mm-hmm. And it was like undefined. Couldn't figure it out.
Oh my God, that's like devastating. Like as a kid to be like, here, you've just taken this test to tell you what you want to be. And what do you want to be? Undefined. We don't know.
Don't know. And then once it came up as cinematographer, which I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And I've always been pretty into, I would say, pop culture, Hollywood, things like that. And I carried that into college and what I studied there. So that kind of made sense. But even at college at Smith, in picking a major, I remember sitting on the porch of my house and one of my friends, it was like the end of sophomore year when you're supposed to declare. And one of them went through all the majors and I said no to every single one except one, which was American Studies, which was what I ended up doing, because it was a little bit of everything, and that's what I liked. So, yeah.
Which is interesting because, having worked at Smith, I feel like I met a lot of international students who majored in American Studies, and not as many American students who majored in American Studies.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great interdisciplinary option that kind of spoke to me. So.
Nice. All right. So you get through college, you're studying American Studies. Did you have any idea what you wanted to do with that as a degree, or were you just completely unsure?
Well, I was going to do a film studies minor as well, and I was one class short of it, but that was really where my heart lied with film and television. But at Smith at the time, you couldn't major in film. So that's also kind of why I added American Studies as that layer above it. But I wanted to work on music videos specifically. And I moved to New York the day after graduation with that in mind, with no job prospects at all.
Nice. And did I just hear? I just was having this conversation with somebody that MTV is like going away.
Oh, is it? I see.
Is it MTV or VH1?
Spoiler alert, since I left, I haven't paid attention to them.
I was going to say one of them. I'm pretty sure it was
VH1,
MTV.
I wouldn't be surprised if VH1 went away first, but yeah.
Who knows? Okay. So you get to New York City. You have no job prospects. You eventually find a job.
Eventually I found a job through a connection from Smith. I can trace everything in my career back to like a decision I made when I was 18 to go to Smith, first of all. And then through Smith, we had a great career development office. And at the time, it was very analog. You're flipping through like physical pages of alumni contacts and seeing what they do. And I found one alum in New York City who did work at VH1. And I met with her the spring of my senior year first. just for an informational interview, I wore a suit, which is insane because you get to a television company, nobody's dressed up. So I was very fancy. And I felt immediately out of place when I walked in the door. But I met with her. Her name was Amy Haight, and she was so kind. And she said, "I can't give you a job directly because that's not really how this alumni thing works. But I can help you meet people," which is what she did. And eventually, I got a job through her office mate who was looking for a production assistant, and it worked out well. So I started there in the fall of 2002, right after I graduated.
And that's
I
how it
love
works,
that.
right? For so many folks, right? It's not,
Yeah,
I always tell folks, right? And when you're out there looking for a job and you're talking to people, you should never be out there asking someone to hire you because
yeah,
in 99.9% of the cases, they can't, right? Unless they own the company, it's a small business or something, people can't just hire you. But what they can
exactly.
do, right, is open the door or sometimes even show you the door, right? There might be jobs that you have no clue even
Mhm.
exist.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I remember that summer that I spent leading up to that when I was looking for a job. That was all I did was try to meet people and make contacts. And I had that list of alums that were contacts and people that they recommended once I emailed them. And I didn't have a computer. So every single day I went to an internet cafe in Times Square because that's what you do when you don't have a computer.
Mhm.
And I would just email people and contact them and do cold calls and all of that. And I was like, if I put in a few hours of this every single day, eventually something will pay off. And ultimately it was that Smith connection that paid off in the end. So
All
yeah.
right. So, what does a production assistant actually do as we start to get into where
I
you
mean, it
jump in?
really depends on the production. At VH1, it was very heavy on managing a library of tapes that would eventually go into the show that you were working on. So you had to pull, VH1 and MTV had this huge video library. And at the time, again, analog, nothing was digitized. So we had to physically, search through the records of what was available, go pick up physical tapes at the tape library, log them, watch them, write down the time codes of what we wanted to put in the show. And it was really kind of assisting the editor and the producers to figure out what was going to go in the show. And if there was a live shoot, it was, doing kind of the things like getting coffee and food for everybody, that kind of thing.
All right. So, eventually you finished that and you started working on some pretty interesting things through the years.
Yeah. So I worked there at VH1 and MTV for about 3 years. Then I started doing freelance at smaller companies. And I was kind of working up the ranks through producing and eventually became a producer for History Channel shows, Discovery Health. I did some Style Network shows, a lot of wedding shows on the Style Network, and did that all the way up until 2009 when I decided I wanted to leave New York and go back home to Minneapolis. And then I kept doing it in Minneapolis and found a great company here that did a lot of home renovation shows. And I remember when I first met them, they said, "Well, you have no renovation experience." And I said, "Yes, but I can produce a television show and I've done it on all different subjects. So if you just show me how to renovate a house, I'll make a show about it." So eventually they trusted me and and ended up staying there for 7 years and eventually was one of their executive producers. So,
It boggles my mind how much people get stuck in, must have renovation experience to produce a renovation show. And you're right. And like, you're not the
yeah,
one that's out there hammering the nails.
right.
Right. And
Exactly.
it's the toolbox of being a producer that you take with you throughout.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing a shout out to all of, I feel like I'm actually flipping the script a little or flipping the desk a little bit here to all of those people out there that are in hiring positions,
Hmm.
and my invitation to get unstuck,
Yeah.
unhook yourself from the checklist of must have this specific experience, and really look at these humans from a 20,000-foot view of what experience are you actually bringing. And so I love that you just stepped up and said, I'm not
Yeah.
falling for that line, because so many people will, A, they will accept that feedback. And then B, it makes an impact and an imprint on that person's confidence, who might want to really badly make a pivot. And the story they then tell themselves is that I can't because I don't have that specific
Right.
experience.
Yeah. And to be fair, they did make me work for it. I started as a writer with them, even though I had been a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started as a writer just to get to know the material. And after I think I wrote 10 episodes, they were like, okay, yeah, you know what you're doing. We're going to give you a
Yeah.
showrunner job, which was a promotion from what I had been in New
I
York.
love it.
So they
Yeah.
were like, yeah, you can do it. We see it now.
And that's the game-changing moment, is that they
Mhm.
gave you an opportunity to learn,
Yeah.
and to be challenged and to put new information in your toolbox. And not everybody gets that opportunity.
Yeah,
So there
for
are
sure.
creative ways to, from a hiring perspective, there are creative ways to actually support somebody making a pivot.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Or as we
agree.
say here,
Yeah.
make a squiggle.
The squiggle.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I that's advice that I've given to other people who have asked me, how did you do this? How did you make any change in your career? And I say ultimately it comes down to your soft skill, your critical thinking skills, things like that
Mhm,
that can be applied to pretty much any industry. As long as
mhm.
I'm not applying to be a doctor, obviously I'm not a doctor, but if it's something that is in sort of the corporate world or the professional world and takes a basic level of soft skills, you can do almost anything is what
Yeah.
I think.
You can.
You
You
can,
can,
yeah.
absolutely.
And so I feel like that's about the time that I met you, or you had just come
Yep.
through some of those renovation and
Yeah.
you had a toddler and we're
Hmm.
thinking, you're on the with these renovation shows, you're on site, you're on the
Yes.
road a
Mhm.
lot and you were all over. Like you were traveling on the road. They
Mhm.
weren't Minneapolis based renovation shows. So,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. They started as Minneapolis based, and then as the company grew, we had a lot of travel based shows. So we went to where the stories were. So we had a
Mhm.
show in Virginia, we had Pennsylvania, we had, I mean, all across the country. And then we opened an office in LA. So we started doing more shows in LA. So it was a lot of travel. And it's also television is a pretty demanding industry in that it demands your attention all of the time. If you get a call at night or on the weekend that something's going wrong in a production, you have to pick it up and help them work through it. And that gets harder and harder when you have a little kid. So I did start thinking of what can I do that is a little more normal as far as the hours and the demands, and still have sort of that mental space to be a parent. So I think a lot of
Yeah.
people go through that with different careers, but that was the first drive of I think I need something else. And going to the conference that we did, I remember part of what all I was always stuck on with television, and part of the thing that attracted to me, or me to it in the first place, is that it sounds cool. Honestly, it's pretty cool to say you're a television producer. It's fun. It's really fun. The people are great. Um, so it's hard to leave that, and it's hard to say, "Oh, yeah, I'll be a project manager." That just doesn't sound as fun, but that is ultimately what I did. You have to kinda give up that sort of street cred, if you will, to just say, "You know what? I'm just gonna have a job."
which is it's hard but I also think this is where we set people up for failure in their careers
Mhm.
is we forget to like we always talk about those like three things a job needs to have and it's usually you have the skills, there's a job and you love it, right? Let's find a job that you love. It's going to be these three components. But what people always forget about is does it fit with your life? And right, you still loved that job if
Mhm.
it fit with your life. If you were still a single, 23-year-old, you could have done that job forever, possibly.
Yeah.
But we don't stay single 23-year-olds forever. And,
Mhm.
as we age and as our lives change and our needs change and what we want in careers, that all changes. Sometimes those careers that even felt really good just don't align anymore with
Yeah,
what we want in life.
for sure. And it's
Well, and
also
that,
fairly an unstable industry too. I mean, the
mhm.
job stability, while I did have a job, it did come to a slightly abrupt end eventually after a couple of years after that conference that we met at. Um, and because if there's no shows to make, there's no job. So it's I also needed stability. I needed a place that was a company that had benefits and no end date in sight basically
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
a basic demand.
What I just heard in there, Anna, too, was something around identity.
Mhm.
And that's, I mean, unfortunately, right now, is society norms, is that we get really attached to what we do between the hours of 9 to 5,
Yeah.
and how that too can stand in our way from making changes and pivots and being okay to step away from like this prestigiousness of being a showrunner or being a
Mhm.
producer. Walk us through how you made the change. Yes, it was done for you, yet you were, I'm making an assumption here that you were still attached to that identity. So
Mhm.
how did you work through that as you were pivoting into the next chapter?
I mean, I think part of me is still working through it. It did take, there was a transitional time where, and if you look at my LinkedIn today, it still says producer in the headline.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have it changed to like product producer and project expert or something like that. I can't remember the phrase, because it is still a huge part of my identity. I could go produce a television show right now if you wanted me to. So it's still there, but I do think it took a while. I don't know. Do you want me to walk through how it all ended and how it changed?
Sure.
So we had the production company I worked for, the owners decided to close the company. However, we had one show hanging out there, which was called Stonehouse Revival. And it was a great show. And we had one season that we were still going to do. So we reformed a small company, just four of us, to produce that last season of that show. And which was great. It gave me experience on how to start a company and, all of the things that go into that process. So I learned a lot there. So we started that company. We did the last season of the show. Ultimately, the show was canceled, and I was also pregnant with my second child around the exact same time. So literally about a month out from giving birth, we had to make the decision: do we keep going and invest our own money in developing new shows, or do we say that's it? The show was canceled. It kind of ended the story for us. And so we did decide to just end after that, and we all went our separate ways. I had a kid, no job. So that's always fun to go into, maternity leave without a job to return to. And it really kind of forced me into that, okay, now's the time to think about this transition that I've been mulling over for the past few years. And I, gave myself, I think, 4 months before I sent him to daycare for part-time so that I could start focusing on finding a job. And I applied for anything and everything really and wasn't getting a lot of bites. I think I had a few interviews locally, no great fits. And then I got lucky again with someone that I knew. A friend of mine worked for a healthcare company and they needed a project manager part-time. And she said, and she came from television as well. So she knew my skill set, knew where I had
Love
come from,
that.
and said, you can do this in your sleep. And once again, she didn't just give me the job. I did apply for it. I interviewed with the manager, all of that. Um, and the manager also had a career in television prior. So once again, I kind of had to have that person know my skill set and know that if you can produce television, you can do this. It's a different end product for sure. There's different tools you might be using, different schedules, but you can do it. So I started that job and quickly learned how to use things like Jira, which is a word I didn't even know existed before. So using software like Jira and Smartsheet and things that just didn't exist in television. We're very run and gun in TV, no project management software or anything like that. So I did that job part time, and quickly they were like, "Oh, you're good. You can definitely do this." So I was hired full time after, I would say, about 4 months. But all the while during that, I was still holding on to that identity of like, well, maybe I'll go back to television if something
Mhm.
pops up. And I did a development job for a production company here in town. And they also called me every couple of months and they said, "Oh, we have a story producer job. Do you want to do it?" And I would say, do you have benefits? How long is it?" And they said, 3 months, no benefits. And I said, well, I have a job now. I can't leave a job with benefits for something
Mhm.
without benefits. It just doesn't make sense. So gradually, as those things happened, like I would get a few random emails for a job in television, and I would say, nope, don't want to go back. And so it kind of evolved like that. And I ended up, I'm still at the same company, but I've had, I think, 5 different positions since then. So I've had my own career squiggles during this tenure. So
I
yeah.
love that. Can you walk us through the internal squiggles?
What do you mean?
Well,
That
just how you moved internally and how you set yourself up for success. Did you interview? Did your positions just sort of morph?
Oh, the internal. Oh, you mean I thought you meant like
Just the
internal in my.
internal. Yeah. Oh,
I
now
thought
I'm
too,
now
and I
I'm
was like,
so
"Oh, we're going deep today into
I
the
cool.
emotional side
oh
of
yeah.
this." Here,
I mean,
Anna,
I
grab
have
No.
some
that
tissues
too.
and let's talk about this.
Yeah.
No, no.
Yes,
I
I
was
can
just
walk through that.
the story.
Um, so I was part-time, then I was a full-time contractor, then a full-time employee. I think within probably 6 months, I was full-time employee with benefits and all of that. And I was a senior project manager. And then the company went through a lot of reorgs, as happens in the corporate world. And so I was put on one team, then another team, and another team. And eventually there was an opening for a manager of project management on my team, because we joined forces with another team and we grew. So I got that job as manager of project management. I did that for maybe a year and a half before we had another reorg, and I was given another job. And, sometimes in reorgs, you're just told this is your job now. And
Mhm.
so then my title was manager of operations and quality assurance, mainly because they were centralizing their project management team. So the project managers that reported to me were now reporting to someone else. But my original team wanted to keep me. So they invented a job for me, which was very kind of them.
Love
Um,
that.
and I did that job for about less than a year before another reorg. In the last reorg, I was handed another job that was a position that I was not attracted to. I don't want to go into it too much, but just to say it didn't feel like a move forward for me. So immediately I was kind of like, oh, this doesn't feel like the right fit. And another team, the product team at one of our nursing brands, needed a product manager. And I had never done product before. I already kind of felt like such a poser going from television into project management. And I worked with the product team a lot, delivering the products for them, making the products. But I just wasn't sure if I could do it. So it was one of those things like, well, I don't have that skill set on paper. But then looking back, and I had an informational interview with the manager of this role, and the more we talked about it, I was like, well, that all maps back not only to the project management part of my career, but to my executive producer role when you think about developing new content and making sure that it's, meeting some sort of market need. All of that was related to product management. So the more I learned, the more I said, oh, I can do this. Yes,
I
there'll be
love that.
some new parts of the job that I have to learn, and I'm still learning. But I knew that I could do it. So
Oh,
I
I love
applied,
that.
went through lots of interviews for this, and I got that
Yeah.
about a year and a half ago. So I've been in the product manager role since then.
That's awesome. The power of just exploration. So many people won't even have the conversation and ask the questions and get to that point where they can actually map back how their experience is transferable.
Yeah.
I just want to bring you back to the moment where you said, this doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many people don't listen to their body wisdom, their inner wisdom, their heart wisdom. They just go, okay, yes, I will take that position.
Yeah.
And then they hire Colleen and I because they're like, I'm not career happy. I need to make a change. Anyways, I just want to take you back to that moment where
Mm-hmm.
you knew that something wasn't right and
Yeah.
how what was it that showed up for you? And where did you find the courage to say, this isn't in alignment? This isn't the
Yeah.
direction I want to go.
I mean, the first thing, I had already had one team taken away from me when the project management team was moved out from under me. And then this was the second time was in a management position that they had told me, you're going to stand up this whole team. It's going to be amazing. And then they said, nope, don't need you to do that anymore. We're going to move those people away from you as well and give you this role that was kind of like a project manager position with a fancy different title, but it was a project manager position. And I said,
Okay.
well, I did that 3-4 years ago. It doesn't feel like growth to me. And I kind of was reading through the lines of saying, oh, I mean, I understand they want to keep me, which is lovely, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like growth, as I said. It doesn't feel like moving forward. And I didn't run at that point. I obviously said, okay, I'll give it a try. But then when the other opportunity popped up, I, you know, jumped on that. Um, so does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I just wanted to highlight it because that is something that I have experienced, and
Mm-hmm.
Colleen too, and just in terms of clients that we've worked with, where they take a position, yet they know that it's not the right move, and they just end up somewhere that isn't the right fit. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very common for companies to, I mean, of course, if you're a rock star, companies are going to want to keep you. Like there's nothing to challenge there, yet the positions that are available aren't always the right fit. And
Mm-hmm.
so, there is that moment of, it is okay to say no. It
Yeah.
is okay to speak up and say,
Yeah.
I did this 4 years ago, and, take the position. It gives you runway time to either look
Yeah.
externally, or in your case, a
Mm-hmm.
much better pivot showed up. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a hard time at our company because there were people that were laid off. So of course I'm grateful I'm still at the company and still had a job, but at the same time you have that feeling of like, okay, but I don't know. I just don't
yeah,
know if this is right for me.
yeah,
And I think
So it
there's
was
a
a tough
lot of
time 'cause
people
yeah.
going through that right now, right?
Mhm.
There's so
mm,
many layoffs that keep happening, and then people almost feeling guilty that they're not excited to be the person who didn't get laid off, right?
Yeah.
Or if they got
Yeah.
moved to a different role that doesn't feel like a good fit,
Mhm.
and it's tricky.
Yeah.
And I will say, if that's you and you're listening, there are jobs out there.
Yeah.
Last week was Thanksgiving week, and I had 2 clients who got job offers. I have
Oh,
another
wow.
client who has 3 interviews this week.
Yeah.
I think it's this moment of, yes, some of these big companies are doing some of massive layoffs, but I'm finding a lot of the smaller and mid-sized companies are actually hiring right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
every company has its cycle,
Yes.
right? Like, and sometimes the layoffs, they create the next chapter, right? Like sometimes you have to sort of clear out what isn't working or isn't the right fit. And you take advantage of the economic ebbs and flows. And this layoffs are normal. Like, I hate to call it out, like this is normal. 25 years of watching the ebbs and flows. It is normal, but it can be such, it can just be the start of the next era.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Are you staying in product management? Like, could you see yourself doing this? Or are
Yeah.
you in the, like, as soon as the kids are gone to college, I'm going back to being a TV producer?
No. Oh gosh, I'll be
Traveling the
way too
world.
old then. No, that's not true. There are plenty of producers who are of age, but yeah, I think energy-wise, I wouldn't be ready for that again. Um, no, I am really enjoying product management, and I still feel like such a junior person in the world because this is my first product job, and I started at product manager, which is uncommon. So I feel like I'm still learning, and in the space, you know, in product management, of course, you're always thinking, 3 to 5 years out. So I feel like I need to see that through. I have this vertical, a small vertical of products that I want to grow over the next couple of years. So in order to feel that sort of sense of story in the career, I want to at least see that line through, then assess, see how I'm feeling about the role in the world and go from there. Because it is an interesting, it is similar to television development when you have an idea, but it takes a while to get it going and get all the ducks in a row to make it come to life. So that's where I am right now. I'm kind of in the beginning of that. I had inherited pretty successful products, but some that need a lot of improvement. So kind of seeing where we can take them and better serve our products serve nursing students, so better serve those students is my goal.
Television production and product management. Who knew
Who
there
knew?
could be such a correlation and
Yeah.
connection?
Right.
And
There's
Such a
I
string.
didn't know at all what product management was when I was in television. You know,
Mhm.
I think project manager was a good kind of bridge between those two worlds because everybody has heard the term project manager. That's pretty common.
Mhm.
But product is not something that everyone knows. So to understand that function was helpful because I learned about the function while I was a project manager and,
Yeah.
kind of getting that stepping stone.
Well, I feel like there's such a stereotype on the career of product management that you must funnel through MBA school to be a product
Mhm.
manager.
Yeah.
And
And I
this
still have a
and
little
this
imposter syndrome because I didn't even get close to that.
well, and I really hope that this episode cracks it. And for all of those people that are listening to this episode that have an interest in the world of product management, go explore it because
Mhm.
it's attainable, it's doable.
It's actually how Anna and I reconnected. I had a client who said to me, I'm interested in product management. And I said, okay, go find some people on LinkedIn to talk to. And she came
Love
back and
it.
said, so Anna Campbell,
And
you're
you
connected to her.
and
Can
you
you connect
introduced
me?
me.
And
Oh, I love it.
was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what Anna's doing at the moment. So
Yeah, I love that. No, absolutely. Absolutely. This episode might be the first that cracks it. Just cracks it
Yeah.
open, just on a level of exploration and have a
Mhm.
conversation and figure out the
Yeah.
correlation.
And not to say that, I do feel the deficit sometimes of not having that business background because that's the part that I'm learning the most about.
Mm-hmm.
Developing a product, thinking about content, I have that skill set, but
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the business side of it and all of that is where I'm definitely learning the most.
But that's the stretch.
Yeah.
That's the stretch, right? Like we don't want to be 100% fits for the position, right?
Mhm.
Especially when we're still in our whatever, like 40s, 50s,
Hmm.
50s, like we want stretch and learning and new and
Mhm.
um it doesn't have to be the perfect, 100% fit.
Yeah. Agree.
all right, Anna, we're going to move into our rapid fire fun questions
Ooh.
here. Yeah.
Okay.
So these are much more non-career related.
These are much more fun than the last 32 minutes.
Oh, was that fun?
Or maybe funny. Okay. Ready? The hard one here. Heels or sneakers?
Neither, honestly. I don't wear heels, first of all. I do wear sneakers if I'm working out, which is I should do more of. But mostly boots, honestly, and then in the summer, sandals. So,
Fun.
Nice. So
but
are
sneakers. If
you
I had
still
to
in
pick one of those, it would
Minneapolis?
be sneakers.
You're still in,
Yes.
yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's snow has officially started here. So,
all right. What are you bringing to a potluck?
ooh. So my favorite go-to is an appetizer where you do like roasted tomatoes and burrata and sometimes prosciutto
Oh,
and or like a grilled peach, and it looks beautiful and fancy, but it's very low effort.
Mm. I keep asking these because I feel like I'm going to steal them from folks. We do a large cocktail hors d'oeuvre party every year.
Mm,
And I
yeah,
was like, oh, I need some new ideas.
yeah,
That
there you
might be
go.
on our
I've
charcuterie
done the
table this year.
burrata,
Yeah, I
but I
love the
love the
burrata.
I love the peach. I've done that before
Mhm.
with the tomatoes, but I love the peach
Yeah,
edition. That's
yeah,
brilliant.
a summer, edition.
But pretty color.
Mhm.
All right, I like it. All right. So, what are you binging or streaming on TV these days as someone who has been there?
Stranger Things right now. So I just finished the
Mm.
first half of the new season that came out last week. And now
And
I declared to my husband that my advent is going to be rewatching the Stranger Things leading up to the new episodes that come out on Christmas. So,
okay,
which
I might
we're
have
not
to
going to be
binge
able to
that
watch on
one.
Christmas. I don't know why they did that to us, but we'll watch it that weekend.
Okay.
I will say I've not gotten into Stranger Things. My daughter was terrified of it when it first came out,
Yeah.
and so we never
Well,
watched it, but we also just watched Game of Thrones because it was also
okay.
one of those ones that we didn't want to watch with the
Yeah,
middle
that's pretty
school
brutal.
kids. So
Yeah.
now maybe Stranger Things is going to be our next binge.
Yeah, and I don't even really I'm not a big horror person, but I think of it more as a mystery, and yes,
Mm.
there's some kind of scary bits, but then, it's a very well done show. So,
Excellent. Okay, and most important, because I know you liked Disney. It was one of your reasons you had said that time you came. All right,
mhm.
what's your favorite Disney park and favorite Disney ride?
Hmm.
These are
Gosh,
these
okay.
are not our usual questions. These are way
No,
off
that's
script.
awesome.
So,
That's
My
awesome.
favorite I'm gonna go ride first. My favorite ride is, the Flight of Passage, which is Avatar,
mhm,
which I don't care about Avatar at all, but I love the ride. And I would say
same.
favorite park is probably Disneyland,
Mm.
because it's small and it's very original. I've always been a very traditional Walt Disney fan. Like, in 10th grade, I wrote a paper on him when we had to write biographies. So, like, Disneyland is very much like his space. So,
There's a podcast called
yeah.
Unlocking the Magic. There are a couple from
Okay.
Boston that talk their podcast each week is about the history of Walt Disney and him in
Yeah.
the parks. And so they talk a lot about Disneyland and just like all of his stories. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that
Yeah.
podcast.
There's a
So,
great lore.
yes. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot the last one we always ask people, which is a book recommendation.
Hmm.
What's something you've read that
Um,
you tell other people to read?
see. I'm gonna cheat and look at my bookshelf. I think the best one I read in the last year was probably Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver.
Mm.
Um, she's one of my favorite authors, and it's kind of it's a tale based loosely on David Copperfield. Um, but
Oh,
with like a sort of it's set in like the 1990s in Appalachia. And she just tells such beautiful stories. So that one was really good. But I have like an affinity for very cheesy like romance books too. So I just read a really ridiculous one called My Funny Demon Valentine.
I saw that
That
one. Somebody
is
else
a
posted about
spicy
it.
romance,
Yeah.
but it was a really fun read. So,
I think Lauren, who was one of our first guests on this podcast, I think she posted about that one recently.
uh,
Um, so,
yeah, it's really ridiculous. That's the disclaimer, but
well,
it's fun.
sometimes I feel like when I read at night, I need something that is just mindless and
Mhm.
Yeah,
like, if I forget the plot between today and tomorrow, it's okay because there's really no
yeah,
plot.
for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for being our guest today. If our listeners wanted to connect with you or talk to you,
Mhm.
where could they find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best place. I cannot remember my handle right now.
That is okay. We'll
You
drop
end
it
up
in.
trying to look
We'll
it up.
get it
Yeah,
in there
drop it
for you.
in. But yeah, my social media is pretty private just because I
Yep.
do post about my kids. So, but
Totally
yeah.
makes sense. Yes. And it's interesting. I was going to say to folks, like, if you're connected with me, you can connect with Anna. But funny enough, I'm actually connected to 3 people who are named Anna Campbell.
Wow. Is one
Because,
of them the wedding dress designer from Australia? Because that's who comes up when you Google Anna Campbell.
oh, interesting. I will have to look. No,
I don't know the rest of them. So,
because I instantly, like, I pull up the people's LinkedIn when we jump on these, and I'm like, this is not Anna. Like, wait a sec. So
actually, there's another Smith
I think
alum named
she's a
Anna
Smith
Campbell
alum.
too.
Yeah.
So maybe it's her. Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. This has been a great conversation. So, if this conversation has sparked something exciting for you, some idea, a question, maybe you're looking to try something new, drop us a message on Instagram, LinkedIn, or TikTok, or join one of our either virtual or in person events that are happening in January as we look at embracing our squiggles for 2026. So, thanks, Anna. This has been
Yeah. Thank
fantastic.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anna.
Is it time for you to add a little squiggle to your career? Join us every week to hear from another guest talk about how they embrace the squiggle.
Subscribe now and find your inspiration.